My name is Anna. I'm 25 years old and married to Ethan. From the outside, we're the couple everyone admires, stable jobs, a decent home, no major fights. But behind closed doors, things have been quietly crumbling. There's no big drama. Just absence. Silence. A slow disappearance of warmth. Ethan's still here, but I don't feel seen anymore. Our conversations are brief, always surface level. When he touches me, it feels like routine. I miss being wanted. I didn't realize how lonely I was until Liam entered our lives. Ethan mentioned he was coming to stay for a few days. His best friend since college. I had never met him, only heard stories. I didn't expect anything, honestly. Just thought it'd be nice to have someone new around. I didn't think I'd feel anything. But I did. From the moment we met, I noticed him. His energy was completely different from Ethan's. Where Ethan was reserved, Liam was effortless, open, expressive, observant. He looked at me like he was actually seeing me. I noticed how easy it was to talk to him, how he asked questions and actually listened. It caught me off guard, how quickly I responded to that attention. I wasn't looking for anything. But something inside me woke up. The first night he was there, we all stayed up late talking. I laughed more than I had in weeks. Ethan seemed happy to have Liam around, and I tried to focus on that. But when Liam complimented the food I made, and his eyes lingered just a second too long, I felt it. That little jolt. I pushed it down. In the following days, Ethan's routine didn't change. He was out early, home late, constantly on calls or buried in his laptop. Liam, on the other hand, was around. He offered to help with things, made me laugh, asked about my job, my family, my interests. It wasn't flirtation, at least not openly. But there was an energy there. Something unspoken. I began paying attention to things I hadn't in a while. How I looked in the mornings. The way I answered his questions. I hated how much I cared about his opinion. I hated how it made me feel alive. I tried not to encourage it, but I didn't stop it either. There was a moment, small and insignificant on the surface, when I realized I was in trouble. I was pouring coffee, and he walked into the kitchen. I turned, and he was closer than he needed to be. He didn't move. He just looked at me, then smiled and said good morning. Nothing happened. But everything shifted. That night, I lay in bed next to Ethan. He was already asleep. I stared at the ceiling, thinking about how wrong it all felt. Not just Liam. The distance. The silence between me and the man I married. I tried to think about the last time I felt excited to be near Ethan, and I couldn't remember. That scared me. The next morning, Liam offered to drive me to the store. Ethan didn't even look up from his laptop when I told him. In the car, Liam played music I liked, asked about my favorite movies, my childhood, my goals. He remembered details from our earlier conversations. It made me feel important. Wanted. And that scared me even more. We returned, and I forced myself to act normal. I avoided eye contact. But it was too late. I knew the line was already blurry. And I didn't trust myself not to cross it. That evening, Ethan had to step out for a meeting. I stayed home. Liam offered to help cook. I told him I was fine. He stayed anyway. We talked. About life, about mistakes, about choices we never planned to make. He told me he admired my strength. I didn't feel strong. I felt like I was slipping. Before bed, he told me, "You deserve to be happy." It was just a sentence. But it hit me harder than I expected. I thought about it long after I turned out the lights. I didn't kiss him. I didn't touch him. But emotionally, something already happened. I knew it. And that was the beginning of everything unraveling. After that night, avoiding Liam became impossible. Everything had already changed. We hadn't kissed, hadn't touched in any inappropriate way, but the way we looked at each other said everything. I told myself I was just lonely, confused, trying to make sense of my marriage falling apart. But the truth was, I didn't want to stop. I wanted more of the feeling he gave me, and I hated myself for that. Ethan was still blind to it all. He continued working late, still assuming everything was fine. I wasn't angry with him. I had tried. I had hinted, asked for time, initiated conversations he brushed off. I had begged in silence. He didn't notice. Now I wasn't sure I wanted him to. I started waiting for moments when Liam and I were alone. I stopped pretending I didn't care. Every word between us held weight. Every glance made my chest tighten. It felt dangerous and alive. One afternoon, Liam asked me if I was okay. I told him I didn't know. He said I didn't have to pretend with him. He said he knew what it felt like to be in a relationship that made you feel alone. I didn't ask what he meant. I just listened, trying not to show how much it mattered to hear someone say it out loud. The first kiss happened when I was too tired to lie to myself. I didn't plan it. We weren't even talking. I looked at him and he looked at me, and it was already done. It wasn't rough or rushed. It wasn't even that long. But it shattered whatever self-control I had left. I pulled away, instantly filled with guilt. He stepped back, said nothing, and left the room. I stayed frozen, my mind spinning with shame and confusion. I avoided him the next day. Ethan came home early, noticed something was off, asked if I was feeling sick. I nodded. It was easier than explaining that I didn't recognize who I was anymore. I couldn't eat. Couldn't sleep. My body was restless. I didn't know if I was terrified or thrilled. I didn't understand how I got to the point where someone else's attention meant more to me than my husband's love. When Ethan announced a weekend work trip, my heart sank. I knew what it meant. I knew what I would let happen. The guilt didn't stop me. That weekend changed everything. We crossed the line. There was no going back. No more pretending. No more excuses. I had betrayed my marriage. I had betrayed Ethan. But I also betrayed the version of myself I used to believe in. And yet, in the middle of it, I felt something I hadn't in a long time, wanted, chosen, not just needed out of duty but desired. When it was over, I sat in silence. Liam didn't pressure me. He didn't say it would be okay. He just said, "We'll deal with it." But I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know what I wanted. It wasn't love. Not really. It was escape. It was validation. It was something I had been starving for, and I hated that it had to come this way. Ethan called that night to check in. I forced myself to speak like everything was fine. I asked him about his hotel, his meetings, told him the house was quiet. I wanted to confess, but I didn't. I didn't even know where I'd begin. I hung up and stared at my reflection in the bathroom mirror. I didn't cry. I just stood there, numb, wondering how I'd become this person. The days that followed were tense. Liam and I didn't talk about what happened. We acted normal. But every small touch felt heavier. Ethan returned, exhausted and distracted. He thanked me for managing everything. I smiled, nodded, swallowed the guilt. At night, I lay beside him while he slept, staring into the dark, feeling everything I'd done press against my chest like a stone I couldn't lift. Liam texted me late one night. He said he couldn't pretend nothing happened. He said he couldn't be around me like before. He said he was falling for me. I read the message over and over, unsure what to feel. I didn't respond. I couldn't. I had no answers. Only silence. Ethan came home from work 2 days after the trip and asked if I'd changed my phone password. I froze. I hadn't. But I'd forgotten to delete Liam's last message. He must have seen the preview. He didn't press. Not yet. But something shifted in his expression. The silence between us got colder. That night, I couldn't look at him. I pretended to be asleep when he got into bed. My heart was pounding the whole time. I knew he felt it too. The next morning, he didn't say goodbye before leaving for work. He always said goodbye. I stood in the kitchen, numb, replaying everything in my head. How it started, where it went, how fast it all spiraled. I had told myself it was just a moment. A crack in a weak foundation. But it had turned into something deeper. Not love. Not commitment. Just escape from a life I didn't know how to fix. I didn't speak to Liam after that message. He stayed in the guest room. We avoided each other completely. The house felt tense and hollow. I barely ate. Ethan barely spoke. Liam was packing to leave, and I didn't stop him. I couldn't. If he stayed, it would only make everything worse. He said goodbye quietly, told me to take care. I nodded. That was it. No promises. No anger. Just a quiet end to something that never should have started. That night, Ethan sat me down and asked the question I'd been dreading. He didn't yell. He didn't accuse. He just asked, "Did something happen between you and Liam?" I didn't answer right away. I tried to lie. I opened my mouth, and nothing came out. Then I nodded. I didn't explain. I didn't justify. I just said yes. He stared at me for a long time, like he didn't recognize who I was. I could see the pain behind his eyes, the way he was holding himself together. Then he stood up and walked out of the room. I heard the door to the guest room close. I didn't follow. I didn't cry. I just sat there, staring at the floor, finally realizing what I had done, not just to him, but to myself. For the next few days, we barely spoke. He moved around like a ghost. I wanted to say something, anything, but there was nothing I could say that would make it right. I'd crossed a line, and now everything between us was stained. I hated myself for it. I hated how much damage I had caused with so few choices. Eventually, he packed a bag and left. He said he needed space. He didn't say how long. He didn't promise to come back. I didn't beg him to stay. I just watched him walk out, feeling completely empty. I wanted to feel angry at someone. At him for being distant. At Liam for coming between us. But the truth was, it was all me. I let it happen. I looked the other way. I chose silence over truth, and now I was living with the weight of that silence. My phone stayed quiet. No calls from Ethan. No texts from Liam. The house was too clean, too still. I stayed inside, kept the blinds drawn, ignored messages from friends. I didn't want to talk. I didn't want to explain. I wasn't ready to face the reality of what I'd done. One night, I found myself scrolling through old pictures on my phone. Ones of me and Ethan, smiling, holding hands, standing in front of places I barely remembered. We looked happy. Maybe we were. Or maybe I just wanted to believe we were. I kept looking at one photo in particular. The way he looked at me. Like I was his whole world. I felt sick. I didn't deserve that look. Not anymore. I kept thinking about the version of me he loved. The one who used to laugh easily, who didn't second-guess every feeling, who believed in forever. I didn't know where that version of me went. She disappeared somewhere between the missed conversations and the slow, creeping loneliness. I blamed the silence. The neglect. But really, I'd been looking for something outside because I couldn't face what was broken inside. Every time I tried to write a message to Ethan, I deleted it. What could I possibly say? Sorry didn't come close. I had ruined something fragile and irreplaceable. And I wasn't even sure if I regretted the act or the consequences more. Maybe both. Maybe neither.